Shri Gurubhyo Namaha children, welcome to the poetry, A Thing of Beauty, written by John Keats. To speak about Keats, Keats is a romantic poet and they followed the romantic tradition of the poets of the 18th century and early 19th century. If you talk about these poets, they did not follow the tradition of poetry writing, but came away from that and they took the free verse of writing poetry such that they can express their words very clearly, which brought out the beauty for the poetry. Now, when you talk about Keats, Keats is a romantic poet, and not only him, you have lot of other romantic poets during his period. First, let us speak about Keats and the works of Keats and what he felt about poetry and all those things. Now, all the poetry of Keats, it's filled with emotions, the emotions which brought tranquility to the human being. The heart bubbled with happiness. That was the way in which he conveyed ideas in his poetry. And many critics, they have criticized Keats when he lived. And when we talk about Keats, his lifetime is very, very less. He lived only up to 25 years and he died out of tuberculosis, which he got from his brother, and when he was taking care of his brother when he had tuberculosis. Earlier, Keats trained himself as a surgeon, but he found out that there was a poet within him, so he wanted to take up writing poetry. One of the closest friends of Keats is Shelley. During his last days, Keats had lived together along with Shelley in a house, in a room in Rome. Even now, if you go to Rome, you can see the cemetery of Keats lying there at peace in Rome. Now, if Keats had lived a full life, might be like 70 years, 80 years or so, you can understand what would have been the amount of contribution he would have done for the field of poetry and other works. The whole world would have crowned him as a great nature poet. It would have kept the crown of great poet with a stating that he is a great poet. Definitely they would have done it, but unfortunately he died at a very early age. Now, this particular poetry is from an excerpt named Endymion. Endymion is a poetry, a very lengthy poetry, which speaks about a shepherd by name Endymion who fell in love with Cynthia, the moon goddess. So, the entire poetry speaks about it, how Endymion loved Cynthia, how he happened to see her. Once Cynthia came to earth, and at that time she saw Endymion, and Endymion saw her and he fell in love with her. And so, he goes to the extent of crossing various landscapes and going down into the sea, seeking the love of Cynthia. This is what is seen in this particular poetry. And we have a small portion taken from the poetry Endymion for us to study under the title A Thing of Beauty. Now, Keats, being a poet of love and beauty who expresses through his verse beautiful things of nature, now he quotes in the Ode to a Grecian Urn. What he says is that he compares truth and beauty, and he says, truth is beauty, beauty is truth. That is all ye need to know. and that is all ye need to know on earth. This is what he says. Now he compares truth and beauty. If you are going to be truthful, it is beautiful. That is what he means here. And Keats wanted to create a world in which the lovers of poetry would wander happily studying the works of the great poet. And in this particular poetry, Keats talks about various beautiful things. The beauty of nature. He speaks about the spring, he speaks about roses, he speaks about landform, and so many more. Where on earth would we ever say that there is no beauty? Beauty is lying everywhere. To come to this, John Keats, he was born on 31st October 1795 and he died in 23rd February 1821. Just for about 4.5 years he spent to write his poetry, the various works that he wrote. We will be seeing in the forthcoming slides about the works of Keats. And he is an English romantic poet. Romantic poet always talks about the concept of beauty and love, the love for nature, the love for beauty. And he was trained as an apothecary. Apothecary is nothing but trained in medicine. Actually, he was a surgeon. And he took up to writing only for 5 years just before his death. See, he understood there was a poet within him. So he thought, why don't I try writing poetry? And I have to quote something here. It is something very, very difficult for the people in the literary field to accept a person as a poet or a writer. It is universal. To quote with here, even in India, for example, children, you would have read in Tamil about Sangam period. Right, during the Sangam period, if anybody wants to show out their poetical work, they have to read it in front of the scholars. And only if the scholars accept that it is a good poetical work, that literary work will be accepted. The same thing is here with the Keats, not only with Keats, but other poets of this particular period as well. It is not just that easy for a person to be accepted as a poet. Even Keats had lot of criticism. Various works which was not accepted by the literary scholars was later accepted after his death. And he died of consumption at the age of 25. Consumption is nothing but tuberculosis, which he got inherited from his brother. As he was taking care of his brother, he got this tuberculosis, he was affected. Now, those days we never had medicine for all these diseases. And as we never had any medicine, it was the result, he died. There is something which everyone used to say that tuberculosis is the disease of poets. Poets are subjected to lot of tension. The reason is they have the tension whether their work will be accepted in the society, and they have to face the criticism of so many people. All this tension was also a reason for these people to inherit tuberculosis. This is one of the theory which tells. Next, I was talking about Endymion. Endymion is a large poetry, a very lengthy poetry. And this poetry, A Thing of Beauty, is a small excerpt from this particular poetry, Endymion. Here and here you can see two pictures. This is moon goddess. Cynthia. And this is none other than the shepherd Ennion. Now Ennion, as he was resting in the field along with his herd of cattle, one day happened to see moon goddess Cynthia. And what happened is that he was attracted towards the beauty of this moon goddess. Moon goddess also saw him and she was attracted by the beauty. But as she is moon goddess, she left to her place. Ennion wanted to reach her. So he crossed through several mountains, went down the sea in order to reach to the place where Cynthia lived. And that is being described in this particular lengthy poem, Ennion. To know about Ennion, it's a poetic romance. The love of a shepherd called Ennion for the moon goddess Cynthia is explained here. It's a narrative poem in 4 books and 1,000 lines in each. So the entire poetry is of 4,000 lines. Keats has written this lengthy poetry to describe the love of Ennion for Cynthia. And it is written based on Greek myth. Usually it is not true. You cannot say that the moon goddess will come down, because we know moon is a celestial body. But these romantic poets can go to any extent of imagination, and hence he has given this beautiful romantic work, Ennion, for the readers of literature to read and enjoy. These are some of the works of Keats. Let us see what is that. Bright star, to autumn, to sleep, the human seasons, Megmerelis, the eve of Saint Agnes, La Belle Dame Sans Mercy, Ode on a Grecian Urn, Ode to Nightingale, Ode on Melancholy. Now to say something about all these works. When Keats was sound in health, all his poetry had happiness as the main theme. But after he fell sick, after he started fighting against a disease, you can see that a melancholic view stepped into the poetical works of Keats. You can see a few romantic poets. They are all poets of 18th century and early 19th century. You have Lord Byron, you have P.B. Shelley, you have Leigh Hunt. These 3 poets are during the poets during the period of Keats. And Shelley is a person who was very close to Keats. Shelley had lived with Keats together, and after Keats died, Shelley has written even one work, a lengthy poetry, in which he speaks about Keats. These are the other romantic poets, S.T. Coleridge, William Blake, and William Wordsworth. All these people have written poetry describing nature. Can you ever say that nature is not beautiful? Anything that you see in nature gives you beauty, and that beauty brings happiness to your heart. During winter season, you would have seen the grass on the ground or any plant to say. You would have seen the dew drops which have settled on the leaves or on the blade of the grass, and that will glitter when the sunlight comes out. It will appear to be a diamond on the plant, on the grass, blade of grass. Doesn't it bring happiness to your mind? Don't you love to see that? These romantic poets are known for such works. Here you can see certain beautiful picture. You can see the rising sun, you can see the thick growth of trees, and I wish to go and live in a place like this, where there is no pollution, where there is no noise of the crowd, where you can lead a life of happiness, perfect happiness. You can see a few more pictures. You can see the beautiful chicks opening their mouth in the nest, waiting for the mother to feed. Looking at it, it really gives you so much of happiness to your heart. Anything that is small is beautiful. Even if you see a piglet, the young one of a pig. No, when we say pig, everybody will just think the place where it lives. But if you just see the young ones of a pig, so beautiful and rosy it will be. You can see the bird sitting here in a branch. See the scenic beauty, and just it is observing something, and when we see, we do observe something, and all this silence of nature, the beautiful nature, is sure to bring beauty to our heart, and that beauty will bubble happiness within us. You can see adorable puppies here. So, anything that you see, a small kitten or a puppy or whatever it is, the human tendency is to just lift them and play with them, because all those things we should not miss in life. They give us happiness to our heart. We see happiness in the smile of young ones. When a mother carries a baby, and when the baby smiles at her, mother is filled with joy. And the innocent face of the child with its innocent smile, anybody who looks at it, it will fill their heart with joy. Can there be anybody in this world who would say that I don't like the smile of a young, beautiful baby? Nobody can be like that. So, it fills our heart with joy and happiness. That beautiful smile brings happiness to us. You can see the children smiling here. Only small children can smile without any other imitation or forced smile. We human beings, when we grow up, at times we are forced to smile at others. But this innocent smile can be seen only in small kids, and that will definitely bring beauty to our heart. When the mother serves food at home for the crying baby, the baby smiles. There are so many small children in this world who do not get food, and when food is given to them, you can see the smile on their face, the happiness on their face. There lies the beauty. Now, the person who offers food will feel a satisfaction, and that satisfaction will bring happiness in us. The satisfaction that we have fed somebody and we have brought happiness into their lives. You can see how these children are so happy having received some food. Anything and everything that you start observing minutely, it adds beauty, and that beauty is sure to bring joy in the minds of everybody, and not only in their mind. If a person is happy, everybody around them will also be happy, and that person will see to it that he keeps everybody around him also happy. This small baby, if you see, the baby is trying to touch this ant. Okay? See the gesture of that particular baby. Now, if you just see small babies when they are 6 or 7 months old, they start picking up everything that come across. They do not know which is harmful, which is harmless. This baby tries to touch the ant. So beautiful it looks, the gesture of the baby. And the lilies and lotus on the pond, grown on the pond, the moment you look at it, it brings happiness, because you are not going to see only the lotus over there, but you can see that you will have honey sucking bees also moving around this lotus, the humming sound of the bees, and this is sure to bring happiness. We will continue in the next class.